Joined now today by our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Alex, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me, dude. Great to be with you.
We have a great big problem. We have so many problems with education. In fact, this is the typical progressive way that they undermine our republic in every different way when it comes to education. There are so many crises in education. You've got you've got out of control teachers unions. You have got the politics, the Black Lives Matter, the Planned Parenthood involvement. You've got the transformation of American education away from academic to becoming purely ideological. You've got 1,000 things wrong. But the one thing that we don't maybe talk enough about is just how dangerous the teachers unions. And I'm saying this because unlike a lot of other aspects of our failed public schools, the teachers unions are impacting much more than just school kids. They are changing the very complexion of what America is one generation at a time. And we've got a story here about a North Carolina teachers union boss by the name of Brian Proffitt, who's literally a communist and has incredible sway over politics in the states that he's been involved. Talk about the story, please.
Yeah, this is another one of those, like, I told you so, right? Why are they teaching communism to the kids in the school? Well, partly because the teachers' unions are run by actual communists. And so this guy, Brian Proffitt, there he is up on the screen. Unbelievable. He is a well-known revolutionary. He's actually involved with a group called Liberation Road. And if you go over to Liberation Road's website, you'll see that they are followers of Chairman Mao, who has the distinction of being the most prolific mass murderer in all of human history. Nobody, as far as we know, has murdered as many innocent human beings as Chairman Mao. And for these guys, we need to learn from Chairman Mao. We need to implement his ideas. They also give a tip of the hat to Vladimir Lenin, to Karl Marx, and to the communist revolutionaries who've gone before them. It's incredible. And now this guy is the vice president of the North Carolina Educators Association. Spent years in the classroom. Now he radicalizes teachers. And he's actually written struggle papers for this crazy Maoist communist organization where he advocates targeting the schools to build these revolutionary coalitions to overthrow our system of government and bring us all under slavery. It's mind-blowing, and yet there it is.
When I listen to him talk, he like so many of these union bosses, I don't understand why our country is so blind when it comes to education. When was the last time you heard any union boss talk about making our kids better readers, making our kids better prepared for careers, making our kids math literate? No. The teachers barely talk about the kids. The union bosses never do. This guy has come out and said flat out that his main function is capitalism's got to go. He's a teachers union boss, and his primary mission is to get rid of capitalism and turn America into a socialist country. And this seems to be completely like what you would expect. There's not no eyelids eyebrows are raised by this. Nobody sees this as a conflict of interest. This guy Brian Proffitt is almost single-handedly responsible for turning Virginia into a blue state. How'd that happen? Talk about his involvement in the kind of politics that basically turned Virginia from a red state to a blue state.
Yeah, there's actually a really interesting article about Liberation Road, this organization that he's working with, and what they did in Virginia. So basically, on their public documents and statements, they identify the Republican Party as the primary enemy of the revolution. And so they seek all different ways to destroy the Republican Party so they can destroy the other things they want to destroy: capitalism, heterosexuality, traditional gender ideas like male and female. And so Trevor Loudon, who I know you know him well as well. He writes for the New American, and he also writes for the Epoch Times. He did a really interesting piece in the Epoch Times going through how Liberation Road was involved in flipping Virginia from a red conservative state, turning it into a blue state. And that involves partly mass migration. That involves registering everybody who would never vote to go vote. It involves using all sorts of political trickery to get them to go and vote for Democrats and communists. They've also, this Liberation Road group, infiltrated the highest echelons of the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party establishment, to the point now where the Democratic Party and their platform is actually now moving very, very close to full-blown Marxism.
Well, when you look at Kamala Harris and AOC and Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, you look at the only Democrat congressman that anybody can name in this country, the ones who are constantly on TV for their controversial behavior. They're all really, for lack of a better word, Maoists. And he's a union boss in North Carolina. And we see how North Carolina is teetering. In this next election cycle, if not in 2 years, certainly in 4, North Carolina will be the new Virginia. It will be unrecognizably blue. Just what they did, this group did in Virginia, they're doing it in North Carolina. There are a lot of other states where they've got their fingerprints here. And, this idea that pretty much now American education is being run and controlled by people who are outright anti-American leftists. They are socialists. Black Lives Matter with its huge footprint in the schools. We know that the leaders were trained by Weather Underground socialists. It's unbelievable times that we live in, but I'm afraid that the revolution has gotten so far and is so deeply embedded now that there's not much you can do about it. Alex, at the end of the last segment, I broached with you a big 800-pound gorilla in the refrigerator, so to speak. Is it too late? I mean, have they infiltrated American society so deeply and profoundly? I mean, one of the two major political parties, the party, by the way, that's not the least bit concerned about voter fraud at the level we saw it in the last election cycle, teaming up with sort of soulless, politically leftist tech companies to silence conservative voters. Have we reached the point now where this is not much we can do about the infiltration of people like Brian Proffitt?
Well, it's a good question, Duke, and I think a lot depends on parents. No parent with a brain would allow this lunatic to come into their house and talk to their children, right? Even supervised, right? Would you let this guy come into your house and talk to your kids? Absolutely not. And yet, so many of these same parents who wouldn't dream of letting this maniac into their home will send their kids for 8 hours a day, for 5 days a week, for 12 years to go study under people who are under his influence, under people who believe literally the exact same garbage. And so as long as parents continue to do that, as long as American parents, something like 74% of American parents continue to send their children to these brainwash camps, as long as that continues, the revolution will not be stopped. In fact, it's almost guaranteed to be successful. Even if a handful of kids slip through their grasp, slip out of their claws, they'll get the vast majority of them. America will be finished. However, I think the mainstream of America today is still diametrically opposed to, is very hostile to these ideas. The problem is, do they have the strength and the will to do something about it? And that really begins with protecting your kids. If American parents keep sending their kids to these brainwash camps, I think the revolution will succeed. America will live through the very same types of things that we saw in Cuba, in Germany, in Vietnam, in China, in the Soviet Union, and everybody thinks that's extreme. That's where we're headed, folks. This guy is a Maoist, and he is one among many. It's the tip of the iceberg. But if American parents see what's going on and start taking action and protecting their kids, and we're seeing this in huge numbers, Duke, with all the schools shut down, massive numbers of parents are getting their kids out. If we see more of that, I think there's a chance we can put a stop to this.
Well, take one last look at Brian Proffitt. Put the picture up there. This is a guy with his intensity and what he's written in the past. If he found himself in a position of power in a burgeoning communist America, this is a guy who would literally put a bullet in your head. He would put a bullet in your skull. He is such a true believer. Very dangerous. And the fact that we put this monster in charge of school children and his own lecturing, his own screeds, his own so-called struggle papers, make it clear that your kids are just human capital. Your kids are just grist for the mill of socialist revolution. They're handicapped. These kids are brainwashed. They're held kidnapped in these 8-hour-a-day public schools, listening to the same kind of leftist Marxist garbage again and again. They're going to be the ones who are going to lead this revolution, and he's going to be at the head of it. Teachers unions. We started the premise of these two segments off with this. There is perhaps no more less talked about a real problem in American education than these teachers unions. Give us a final word or two about how not only are they worthless and money grubbing, not only are they venal and selfish, not interested in your kids, but they, perhaps more than anyone, steer the course of education in ways that are very dangerous.
Yeah, and that's been going on for 100 years now. The National Education Association has been promoting globalism and communism, and a U.S. Department of Education, and now the homosexuality, and all of it really is coming through the teachers union, and then the teachers union makes sure it becomes policy. Incredibly dangerous. And frankly, parents, if you have not been paying attention, you need to realize your children are in extreme danger. Now's the time to protect them.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Most of you know our show is being censored by big tech.
While this makes it harder to meet the cost of producing the show, that's part of it. It also demonstrates that we must be having tremendous success, or they wouldn't bother to try to shut us down.
If you like hearing truth and common sense with a love for freedom, please join the Patriot Club with a one-time $99 tax-deductible donation. And you'll get this sweet vessel of joy as part of a thank you for joining the Patriot Club.
Etched with the American flag and the words freedom never tasted so good.
All you have to do is visit patriotclub.us and become a Patriot member today.
That's patriotclub.us. Thank you and God bless.